Welcome to License to Spill. I'm on today with Haley Shapiro over in West Palm. Thank you so much from the Curated Collective Therapy Group. How are you today? Thank you for
I'm
joining
great,
us.
Kristina. Thank you for having me. I'm just excited to catch up and talk all things professional and community.
I love that. I love that. I missed you. I'm so glad you're on this show now. I had you on Voices of the Collective. It was so much fun. I couldn't resist. I had to have you on this show too.
Thank you. Any opportunity that I have to compare notes and laugh with you, it's the best.
I know. Today's conversation, I think, is one a lot of women feel but don't always say out loud, especially in our field. Haley, I'm really excited to have you here because you're not just doing the clinical work, you're also building, observing, and navigating these dynamics in real time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Oh, where to begin? I will tell you that I have the privilege of wearing many hats in one day. I will share with you that in addition to my private practice in West Palm, as well as managing a group practice of true experts in this area, I have founded and created a professional community called the Curated Therapy Collective. And it really started as me wanting to find my people. And, as you said, this work and this field that we found ourselves in, those people are beyond essential. And to be able to grow that list of people is just something that I can't deem more valuable, honestly. Like
Absolutely.
you, Christina.
Specifically, I sent you a little bit of a teaser for today about, women supporting women in this field, competition or collaboration. And I think it's because we have two very specific groups that are really heavily based on collaboration and support. I think that's why it's exciting me to kind of join forces to have this conversation. But in particular, when you think about women supporting women in this field, what's been your actual experience and not necessarily the ideal version?
I think the way that people define collaboration, and this is true for men and women, but because we're in a primarily female dominated profession, I will share with you that my definition of community and my definition of collaboration is not necessarily unanimously agreed upon by my colleagues and mentors and friends and coworkers. There are different cultures that I think that have been normed, like fostering competition or, I don't know, creating, I don't know, situations where people are not set up to be successful in environments. And those are sometimes ethically really hard to see. But I think what you learn very quickly is who your people are and who your people are not.
Yeah, exactly. And I've experienced both sides clearly. I've had some really powerful and genuine collaboration with women who truly want to see each other win. Like my collaboration experience with you can be deemed exactly what I just said. It's been a very positive, supercharged, fun experience where we bounce off each other's vibes. It's been great from the jump. It's a win. It's a win. We want to see each other win. We admire each other. We respect each other, and it's been a beautiful matrimony.
I would I would even say that what has been, I don't know, maybe disappointing is the wrong word, but tell me what you think of this. It's like the fact that we're so surprised that we collaborate so well together despite, our relationship being fresh, I guess you could say. It
Hmm.
feels
Hmm.
like we've been working together for quite some time, but this level of collaboration is newer with geography and connections to one another. But how sad is that you and I, who kind of pride ourselves on being community people, right? And keeping our people really close professionally and personally,
Exactly.
that we were surprised
Well,
by
and
that
that's kind
synergy.
of it. Well, that's kind of why I feel it's important to discuss because I've also experienced moments where support shifts into comparison or subtle competition. And what I've learned is that both can exist at the same time, which is we're
True.
great with holding dualities, right? We're great with our DBT skills are strong. And it
Ish
really
people.
Exactly, and it really depends on the emotional security of the people involved. I think it makes a big difference when you're working with somebody who's secure and grounded and has what's the word I wanna look for? I wanna say maybe even their own personal successes they can, stabilize from. I think that's a very important piece of it
Pride
as well.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And
See what
yeah,
we just did there? That
oh
was
my god,
good.
that was great. That was excellent. I I feel that that has been my biggest learning curve with both of my companies. Limitless Integrative Wellness and Root and Rise has been a learning curve in different ways on how to accept collaboration, know if it's coming from a place of integrity and clarity. And I think that's another piece.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I think we've been talking about exactly on the topic that both things can exist at the same time is real support and also competition, projection, even subtle sabotage comes up as well. And have you seen that duality play out in your experience with what you're building or why you built it, maybe even?
I think there is a couple of examples of the elements that you described. I wouldn't necessarily see it as sabotage, but perhaps I would say I see it a little more as like every lady for themselves. You
Mm,
know,
yeah.
there isn't really as much of
Every
the
lady.
team building or community aspects, or showcasing someone else's strengths or abilities. It's more like, that's really nice that this person over there has this expertise, but can I tell you about mine?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
while that's not bad, it sometimes does not yield the camaraderie that you hope would emerge from
Yeah.
a platform or a community. And there are
Mhm.
always going to be things that colleagues may be more comfortable with or less comfortable with. You see it a lot around training or education or public speaking. I have a brilliant colleague that I can think of off the top of my head, and she's a little averse to education and training, not because she doesn't know the content and not because she can't, it's just not her comfort. So I feel like because of our rapport, I don't necessarily push her into scenarios where she would need to feel uncomfortable. But I also know that she could do it and do it well and do it beautifully. So it's the
Right.
balance between being supportive and understanding of others and what their interests are and giving someone a little push when they need it.
You mentioned something earlier where you said it's surprising or it's sad that it surprises us that we collaborate really well, I think is how you phrased it. And there's something that stands out to me about collaboration and I'll use Kristina who does RTM as an example. When I refer people to her, they only see her for 2 to 3 sessions max, and then they come back to me. That's a really unique modality. That's a unique
Okay.
short, turnaround. I'll call it a turnaround. What I will say is before I was sharing clients with her in that way, I had a client, this was before I was trained in EMDR, so we're going back a few years. She needed EMDR. I knew that she needed that. As somebody who's received EMDR in the last 20 years, I find it very valuable in different ways. So I said, "I think that we need to find I'm hitting a wall with you.
Right.
And I think that maybe you need to explore with another clinician. And then when you're done doing that work, if you feel you want to come back to me, you can." And so I remember sending her to this woman I helped her find online. And one of the first things that the woman told her was, "I'm shocked that your therapist is willing to let you come to me to get this done and is not threatened by me taking you." And my client said, "Why should she be? It's to help me." And I just remember my client coming back and telling me that. And I thought to myself, I bet you people do have that thought where they're like, I can't give my client what I think would help them because then I might lose that client. Which then brings me to my point of what you said to me a couple days ago. And you're like, "Hey, isn't this funny? Specializing in everything." You sent me something from Instagram and you're like, "Hey, we should talk about this." So yeah, tell me why did you send that to me?
It made me giggle.
Do you want to tell our viewers and our listeners what it was?
So I believe, I don't know, I've sent you a couple of things that made me giggle
So
over the last couple
yeah,
of days,
it's
but there was
being the specialist in everything.
I think what my visceral response was to seeing
Mhm.
this particular post was, I don't want to see someone that's an expert in everything. I think I don't want to get too legal, but that could potentially be malpractice. I feel that there is areas of specialty and expertise that exist for a reason.
Yes.
And there are things that as professionals I prefer to do, right? But, this is not necessarily for my benefit. It would
Mhm.
be for the benefit of my client. And that goes back to your example with the EMDR trained professional, where it's like, why would I mean, I could read an article or two and exhibit some skills, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm equipped to support my client through, a series of rapid eye gaze exercises.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just think that the concept of having global expertise compromises what we do.
I think you're right. There are a lot of generalists out there that will mark things on directories that say that they specialize in these items or whatever the dossier of menu items are. They remove themselves from being a generalist to being an expert in everything, and I think that's the biggest misconception that confuses clients on what's the right fit, leaves them with these bad experiences, and also leaves the clinician frustrated and lost because 90% of them, I mean, of course, this is a light statistic I'm giving you, but 90% of them are not in supervision to even be able to offer all of these skills as a specialization.
Taking a course does not make you an expert.
No, not at
Doing
all.
3 hours of online training does not yield the outcomes that are preferred all the time.
Right.
Think, you know, I a question that we ask on the Curated Therapy Collective platform onboarding conversation, which is when a clinician joins our platform, there is an interview process with a member of our leadership, as well as essentially, I would say, a little bit of a self inventory that we ask clinicians to do. And one of the questions that I think is super critical in kind of this application inventory is, what do you love to do? What
Right.
excites you? What's your preferred population? What perhaps isn't your favorite? Because while I would never ask a clinician to, choose a favorite child or choose a favorite modality, I think there are things that we know we do well, and there are
Yeah.
things that we can do, but we don't really love doing.
Correct.
And I want to know that stuff because I want to make sure that when I'm connecting a client who's seeking therapeutic support to a clinician, I want to make sure that there's a certain level of compatibility that exists so that the hard work can be done.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And clinicians have said, I've never been asked that before.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that a crazy thought?
I was like, maybe you haven't been asked it, but I'm sure you've thought about it.
I agree that it's frightening that someone isn't really taking the inventory on what it is that they want to provide. How do they want to provide it? I really think this ties back into feeling or being perceived as successful. I think it really ties back into identity and scarcity as to why someone would position themselves that way and not really be fully equipped or skilled.
Right.
I feel like we have an industry that's, I'll say, saturated with support, but not saturated with the right support.
Tell me a little bit more about, I agree with you by my definition, but tell me a little bit more about what you mean. Can you give me like an
So, like,
example?
when I read a profile that has, like, all of these things, unless they have 40 plus years of experience, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt. It's rare that I see someone that's in the field that long that's still accepting clients, right? I think a lot of it comes down to identity and scarcity in that person, and when someone ties their worth too closely to what they believe their successes are or their role, someone else doing well, for instance, online or otherwise can feel very threatening to people. And what I've noticed is we have these two dynamics that are emerging. We have the social influencer therapist that's coming out more and more, and then we have ones that are really seasoned and experienced that don't know how to market themselves, right? And then there's everybody else that's in between. When I see that people are kind of in this competition online to see who's going to be the next Gabby Bernstein, who's by the way not a therapist and is a coach. No shame on that, but like she positions herself in a way that has spoke to a culture that we're seeing online now that self-diagnoses, self-medicates, whatever the situation. And then you and I are trying to build platforms and communities that steep themselves in authenticity, truth, and integrity. And then we're coming
Expertise.
And expertise, yeah, and expertise. So the collaboration aspect of it, instead of collaboration, what we end up seeing is a projection of comparison. And it's less about what the other person can do or is capable of, and more about what activates them internally. So I'm starting to see these profiles more as a diagnostic for that person that's offering the services
Exactly.
rather than what they can help me with.
It definitely makes my curiosity, when I see someone that has a very wide scope, of even ages and stages that they support. When I basically see someone note like they work from, cradle to seniors, and I'm like, "Really? You like all those people and all that all that age range?" I always say that I I so enjoy working with teens, and I'm always met with like physical aversion and response to supporting that population. But I just identified that yes, it's challenging. Yes, I don't think I would want to be 13 years old again. But at the same time, there's so much progress and so much potential. And it's truly nothing more gratifying when that happens. And I'm okay with not everyone liking the same population as me, because then I'm able to kind of collaborate accordingly.
Well, that's the part that's fun because, like, when you're able to collaborate with a trustworthy group, you feel more comfortable referring out. You feel more confident that you're going to help this person that you can't help
Mhm.
directly, but you can help by passing the baton. And that's, I think, the part that surprised me about that clinician because she ended up helping my client immensely with the EMDR. And my client came back to me and we were able to do other work that we weren't able to reach before that EMDR. And the woman had told her to pass along a message to me saying that she was so grateful that I existed in the way that could share in the client's success by collaborating with her. I never formally met her. I never got to collaborate with her again in the future specifically, but I think what was alarmingly loud to me was that that is someone's reaction to helping someone. And I'm going back a number of years, even before COVID, to fast forward to what we've both have built now, knowing that that's the standard approach to collaboration in our field and knowing from my own experience that there is a threatening sense tethered to other people's success. I'd like to remove that. I'd like to work to remove that in our communities and even share a perspective of when you build with intention and you can eventually build an ecosystem where people can fully be in their own lane and still feel supported by this collaboration. Like it's only going to enhance your experience as a clinician and your client's experience as a client.
Felt, it doesn't need to be observed. I feel like when you're in a space where there's, I don't know, I would say competition over collaboration, that's not easily hidden, when you're in an environment with someone as intimate as a therapeutic relationship, whether you're on screen or in the same room. That's kind of hard to ignore, I think. The other piece that you said that I really just wanted to highlight, and I wonder if you think about it this way too, in earlier parts of my career, I worked in interdisciplinary environments, hospital based settings, schools, nonprofits, community based work, clinics, hospitals. So it wasn't until I really arrived in private practice and in group work within private practice that I worked with kind of like licensed people only. And
Mm.
I think people have a lot to say about the medical model and the flaws that exist within the medical model, but I believe my ability to effectively collaborate came from my early exposure and experiences to learning from people with different skill sets.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
definitely.
I was on a team with, the guru neurologist. I did not claim to have all expertise in his arena and vice versa. And there was a mutual respect and an understanding. And I sometimes needed to respectfully advocate for my patients, but he too would respectfully advocate for his patients. But I think the reason why I really pride myself on creating a community professionally that doesn't feel threatening is because we need all of it. We need all of the perspective to benefit our patient.
Exactly.
I think when you find yourself in environments that don't prioritize the interdisciplinary, sometimes that's when the competition really heats up.
My exposure to interdisciplinary environments assisted me in being able to think in the ways that I do. My first experience, I volunteered going back a really long time, but I volunteered my time at a nonprofit and worked alongside the PROS program, which in New York State is a personalized recovery oriented service that is team based mental health programs that New York State designed to help adults with serious and persistent mental illness to improve their quality of life. And it included either housing, medical support, medication management, employment, things like that. It would just kind of education, whatever area of life that this particular client or participant needed help with. And that was my early years experience, and then obviously it evolved until 15 plus years later I'm in a private practice, but I very much come from a whole person perspective, and working with others that do the same thing is very helpful. And but I can say that it's not always supported, and it hasn't always been supported even from people that were mentoring me throughout my career. I would say that there's very strong opinions on how we should be practicing versus what I'm starting to see now is I feel those strong opinions that maybe were steeped in higher education and trainings that have come from that type of setting to now to real life work, I see more and more as trending towards the direction you and I are headed. I mean, it's not I can't say that we're the first, right? But we definitely are doing it really well. But I would say that one thing that might need to change, and maybe this can come from us, is the way that people are mentored in our field. I would say I'm mentoring people in this field now. I assume you are too. But, what was your experience in mentorship dynamics that maybe didn't feel supportive of your goals and directions?
My second year field placement, I had the opportunity to work in a charter school in New York City. And what I loved about this placement was the responsibility and autonomy that I had. My supervisor was in a different building. I had a task supervisor that was able to support me, but she too had a pretty robust caseload. So I would say that I was thrown in
Yeah.
to really be able to, manage my scope of responsibility. And I think it wasn't necessarily the fault of my supervisor or task supervisor that I felt truly on my own. It was more just the environment and the design of the program.
Right.
But I think the challenge for me was needing to kind of be autonomous in an environment that was new and unfamiliar, where we kind of had semi routine check in. So I think by design, I wasn't really set up to be super successful because it didn't have the mentorship, it didn't have the training. I had been in graduate school for 10 months
Right.
and
Right.
then, had an expectation of being autonomous, but I think what I felt really empowered to do was to find my people. And I leaned and connected with a number of different educators who were more kind of in my little pocket of the world there. And again, it just for me it keeps coming back to the interdisciplinary. I can't reinforce enough that when I didn't have access to my like specialized people, my like credentialed people, my supervisor or my task supervisor, because just the culture of the school was just, doing what we need to do and the time that we need to do it. But I think by going to trusted, I was really able to grow and learn and eventually feel super confident about how independent I was at that time in my career as early as it was. But of course, there were days where I was like, "Am I doing the right thing?"
Yeah. Oh my god, I can I had I had a very different experience at a macro placement. My first thing was that I volunteered there before I signed up for grad school for a year. Then after volunteering there, it was helpful for me to make the decision and commitment to fully go to grad school. And I was able to get placed there. I was actually in the pros program in my placement as opposed to like what I was doing before that, which was the volunteer employment section. So
Amazing.
I got placed there, and that macro experience really helped shape the community organizing that I enjoy. The It seems like a no-brainer to me, and I'm not sure if this is from that experience or if it was something how I thought before, because I feel when I'm posed with a problem or someone is going through whatever they're going through that might be challenging in their lives, it seems natural for me to pull back layers and look at all aspects of their life and not just the presenting issue. So I just feel like that's if you're struggling with your sleep routine and hygiene and have insecure housing or insecure food sources, like, kind of makes sense that you would feel stressed and not be able to hold a job. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like that's a no-brainer for me to consider. So I had that experience, and then, I
How
went
does
into a
that work for you in a crisis?
right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's to me, it seems like a no-brainer to, like, look at someone's entire picture. So I had the macro experience, and then I would say I had more of a micro experience. It was with a mandated population. I was placed there as my second placement because I was interested in forensics. I do have a certification in that forensics section. I was very attracted to that line of work, but working with a mandated population really redefined support,
Yeah.
to say it that way, because our rules as a clinician change drastically in those settings, and we're not privy to certain things that we would be in a private practice, right? Working with a mandated population, specialized groups and things like that. I had a mentor there who she was really smart and really helpful in understanding that world, but she never wanted to leave that world. Like, she was super pigeonholed in how she looked at the world because of that lens that she had to wear every day, and she wasn't really open to looking at, maybe this person is insecurely housed. Maybe this person is struggling with, and, like, there was, like, no empathy at all available from her when it comes to, like, helping treat the client because in her mind, because the way that they were mandated and the populations that they were, she was like, there's no hope for you. And I didn't like that perspective. So that was hard to have as a mentor and supervisor. It was hard to have that type of dynamic because I never feel that way about people. No matter how hard the case is, I don't think I can ever say I've ever had a thought that there was no hope. So, like, that was hard to deal with. And then I branched out of that and into more micro, super micro setting where it was a private practice. I was finished with school, and the mentorship was masquerading as positive. And so that was a really tough dynamic to navigate because it presented itself as super wholesome and educational based with the hopes of redefining the field, which was always something that attracted me, of like, oh yeah, let's do this differently. I like doing things different. I love different. Fast forward, the mentorship became a very unhealthy dynamic where there was gatekeeping, discouragement of growth, separation in the team. So, like, there's a difference when a supervisor or a mentor can challenge you in a healthy way versus one who undermines you or tries to control you. And I think, it slipped from being positive and affirming to this controlling, gatekeeping, discouragement of growth that became so it was covert, and then it became overt, and then that was when I knew I needed to leave, and the guidance started to feel more controlling instead of supportive. And I would say that scenario that I'm landing on now is something I hear too much, and I find it to be really discouraging. So it has informed me of how I want to have my practice run and the type of community and collaboration that I desire and crave. Everything that I choose to do is filtered through that experience of what that was like to go through. It has helped me redefine how clinicians are supported in our field, how they're supported in group practice, how they're supported in finding their footing, and encouraged in their niches if they want to develop that, which is how we ended up meeting. All of these experiences really kind of flipped my brain and how I want clinicians to be able to find the support that we both give and provide.
It's interesting. I think I realized how much I loved supporting clinicians in a little bit of a roundabout way, in that I almost was trying to emulate what I wished I received.
Yeah, right? Like, a healthy mentor wants you to become independent. They want you to outgrow them. They want you to, they challenge you, but they don't diminish you. There's transparency, but there's still respect.
Right.
And
You
and
feel
there's
safe
an
to ask a question.
right?
I remember I had a mentor who worked in a large nonprofit and ran a very large call center, 500 calls, letters, and emails a week. It was OPWDD, the Office for
We
People with
just talked about this.
Disabilities. But I remember the counsel that she had given me was, if you're coming with a problem, come with 3 solutions. And I remember that framework really being how I continued to operate through crisis scenarios, complex, social dynamics that presented. I just felt like I needed to problem solve and grapple on my own. It helped me build my confidence
Mhm.
as a professional, as a
Yeah.
supervisor. I have the privilege today of supervising social work students affiliated with universities and going through their clinical rotations. And the whole concept of mentorship. I mean, I don't know about where you went to graduate school or if this was your experience, but it was such a cornerstone, where I went to school and they tried really hard to kind of curate, your connections, whether they were with your supervisor in your field placement or with your advisor, or within kind of clubs and interest areas. But this work is hard enough, it's like you don't then to do it on your own. But that doesn't seem to be the mission and vision of programs today as much as it was. I mean, I didn't go to graduate school 100 years ago, but it was.
Julie and I met in grad school, as some of our listeners. We did not have that experience in grad school. I would say we were thrown to the wolves. I think she would agree that we didn't have a cornerstone like that. It was very much macro based social welfare. There's no harm in that. Like I love community organizing, and like welfare is a hot topic for me. So like I enjoyed that, but they didn't really entertain a meso micro experience at all. They didn't have a cornerstone of mentorship. They basically were like, good
Go
luck.
ahead.
Not only good luck, but you should also work for free. That was another message that we were given.
Big bad private practice. That was a big
Yeah, big bad private. But, well, we can still do community work and have private practice. I'm just saying, you can do both.
there's room for both.
For clinicians and women listening to this today, what should they actually be looking for in community?
Oh, that's such a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is when you're seeking community, to find people or seek out colleagues where you feel like as you're explaining your concern or your problem or your dilemma or your enthusiasm, they meet you where you are within that dilemma, that enthusiasm, that problem. Um, I don't want to use a cliche, but it's like find people that speak your language. I think I said this to you during one of our first conversations. It was like we were finishing each other's sentences, And
Oh, yeah, I remember the hearts were starting to burst over our heads like cartoons.
but I will tell you that it's like when there's little explanation necessary, I think that's almost like for me the validation that you found someone that I don't know, is it the line from what is it, Step Brothers? And it's like, did we just become best friends? And it's like,
Yes.
are we speaking? I don't need to explain this to you. Like, you just get
Yeah.
it. I don't have
Yes.
to, and I feel like that comes up a lot in couples work that we do
Mhm.
too, where it's like, if you need to over explain or what is it, mansplain, what we
Mhm.
need to do or what we're talking about or how we're feeling. I don't know if those people are your people.
Yeah, agreed. I would say pay attention to the how you feel. Like pay attention to how you feel in the space. Do you feel expanded or do you feel like you're shrinking? The right environment will challenge you, but it won't make you question your worth. And watch how people show up when there's nothing to gain. That tells you everything.
I love that. Exhausted. It's like, are you energized, when you have these exchanges, or do you feel like you need to, crawl into bed? Or what is that response? Nonverbals also really important.
Yeah.
Some people, especially in our field, are really masterful at going through the motions of being intrigued
Exactly.
compared compared to actually being
Yeah.
intrigued.
If you had to say one truth about women supporting women that people don't say enough, what would it be?
It can sometimes be hard.
Yeah, agreed. I think the truth is support requires emotional maturity. I think it's easy to say women support women. That's such a buzz term, but it's much harder to actually embody that when someone else is succeeding in a way that you want for yourself. And that's where the real work is for people. I think that's where people either show up or they fall short.
Or you may not. I feel like sometimes the ethics or the morals, if any of that feels compromised, the way in which someone got to achievement or the way in which someone received accolades, but you kind of, for lack of eloquence, feel icky about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can't always be behind that person 100%, but I think it is okay that it can sometimes be challenging.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you so much for today. We are licensed therapists, but we are not your therapists. We would love for you to follow, like, share, subscribe, tune in again with us sometime in the future. Thank you, Haley, for giving me your time today.
Thank you, Julie. We miss you.
We do miss you.